and welcome to ECCB Connects. Are you thinking of opening a bank account? Are you worried that the process is too long or that you have to submit too many documents? This week, Efiah Charlemagne-Norbert and Ishawn James of ACB Caribbean take us through the process of opening a bank account.
We are counting down to the end of season 22 of ECCB Connects. The final episode airs on July 26. While we're on break, stay connected with us on our social media platforms at ECCB Connects for the latest updates and past episodes. See you in September when we bring you fresh, new content to share with you who we are, what we do, and how we serve you.
Thanks for staying connected with us. Efiah, Ishawn, welcome to ECCB Connects.
Thank you for having me, Charlemagne.
Thank you.
Banking issues. It's a sore point for a lot of people. People are complaining that the process of opening a bank account is too onerous. It takes too long. So we're going to look at these issues and see how best we can explain and help our customers, make the process easier and smoother for our customers. First of all, let's look at the types of savings accounts that are available to people, residents and citizens in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Efiah.
Okay, so we have various types of accounts. So you have your regular savings. You have some junior, most banks have an element of junior savings. That's a separate type of account. You have regular checking accounts. You have business checking accounts. You also have investment for term deposits, or what we previously called fixed deposits. And we have other accounts for specific purposes, like saving towards retirement. And you have new accounts now that are like transactional accounts. So these are the main types of accounts that we have.
Quite a few options.
Yes, definitely.
Now, what must an individual consider when determining which of these accounts is best suited for him or her?
Okay, so you first need to consider what the account is required for. What are your objectives, for example? Is it an ordinary account where you will just put in your salary? Is it an account to save money? Is it an account where you require higher interest? So you look at whether you require security and convenience, whether you require savings towards retirement, or if it's just an everyday account, something that you use with your debit card that you go online with all the time. So it just depends on what it is you want the account for.
And if an individual is not quite sure, officers at the financial institution will be able to guide him or her through this process.
Most definitely.
Now, an individual has decided which account he or she wants to open. Take us through the steps. What should an individual do to open an account?
All right. So if you're not sure, you can ask, and persons would guide you. The officers would guide you as to which account. Then each bank would have an application form. So we have documentation requirements. So you have an application form and you have other documents that you're required to have. So before even necessarily going and waiting, you can collect your documents. So you can make a call to the bank to find out what those requirements are, collect your documentation, and then set your appointment for that account opening process. So that's basically what, as simple as that.
Getting your application, that's the first step. Ishawn, you're responsible for compliance, making sure that the banks or the financial institutions are in keeping with international requirements and standards, and there are also requirements for customers. Now, Efiah mentioned documents that are required for opening an account. Take us through these documents.
So one of the first things that customer would need to do is to provide their identification, and it would have to be a government issued ID. We'd also need to ensure that they provide a proof of address and also a job letter.
So proof of address, what type of document will satisfy that?
Usually a utility bill, or in some countries, your driver's license, which has your address on it, can be used. A bank statement also, if you have an account that's already opened, can be provided as proof of address. If you don't have any of those items, what you can do is get a letter from the person that you live with or provide your lease agreement if you're renting.
Why these specific documents? Because some people find that they're quite invasive. You want my rent agreement, my lease, you want all of these documents. Why is it important for a person who is opening an account to present these documents?
Now, the reason that the bank has requires that these specific documents be brought in is because they're set out in law. Now, financial institutions such as banks, well, they're supervised by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And we're also governed by laws which set out the rules and they provide guidelines around the opening of an account. Now, these rules, they're meant to prevent money laundering, and they also help to protect our depositors from fraud, embezzlement, or identity theft. Now, these are other types of financial related crimes. Now, this means that the bank must carry out what we call due diligence. And as we spoke about, the documents that we require. So the law says that we can't open an account for a person that is anonymous. It must be a natural person. So therefore, we must bring a government-issued ID. We also need to understand that the money that's being deposited in this account is from legal means. So you obtain the money legally. One of the reasons is to prevent money laundering, as I stated earlier, and also to protect our depositors. We also would need proof of address because in the event that there's any suspicious activity on your account, or if the bank needs to contact you for any reason to verify a transaction, we must have this information on file. Now, we do understand that the depositors think that it's quite onerous, but it helps them. In the event that they need to provide information for example, a travel visa, or if they need to go to another financial institution for another means, or if they have an immigration related issue, the bank can help them by providing them a letter with this specific information. And the person that they're providing this information to will know that it's legal, it's verifiable. So the whole intent is around protecting the depositors, protecting the bank, and by extension, the economy.
So as you say, it might seem onerous, but it's all to the benefit of the individual and the financial institution, and as a whole, our ECCU financial system.
Definitely.
Ishawn, people might be concerned about the security of this information they're sharing with you, with the financial institution, because of course, very personal information. What systems are in place to ensure that the information people share with you when they come to open an account, that information is protected?
So there are two things that I can tell you off the bat. The bank is bound by the law to ensure that the information that it receives from the customer is kept confidential. So the bank is unable to share any of your information without your consent. And not only that, we have to sign legally to abide by this. Every person who is employed by a financial institution must sign an oath of secrecy. In addition, we have management information systems in place. That's basically our IT resources that ensure the information security awareness to our staff, that your information is not in any way breached.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Efiah. The individual has submitted the application, submitted the relevant documents. What's next, and how long does the process take to actually be set up with an account?
It all depends, and that varies from bank to bank. So certain background checks are done, and as soon as those are completed, depending on the bank, anything from 3 days to approximately a week, week and a half would be the ideal. And that is where you get all of your, including your debit cards sometimes. So those persons, if I may just quickly comment on the privacy aspect as well. Throughout the year, employees of banks, particularly those in the retail arm, are reminded of their requirements. The bank also has a privacy policy. So persons are continually trained, whether it be quarterly or so, on the need to maintain privacy. And in many instances, there are privacy officers that go around the bank throughout the evening at the end of the day to ensure that no information is left either in printers or anything like that. So privacy is really taken very seriously within banks.
What sort of circumstances will prevent an individual from being offered that particular service with a commercial bank or a financial institution?
Well, based on the background checks, if that individual, we have various lists that we review to determine if certain persons are banned on various world lists, world check, and so on. If they appear on those lists, then we would not provide a bank account.
Just to add to that also, not only the checks that we do against the sanctioned list, but we may have internal lists that we review based on any sort of a previous experience or activity that help to guide our frontline staff when a person applies for an account, whether or not they meet that particular requirement.
We talk a lot about financial inclusion. What sort of systems are in place to ensure everybody who wants to open an account with a financial institution, that they are able to do so, that it's accessible to them?
In terms of access, there are no limitations really. As long as, so for example, persons who are resident within Antigua would be able to open an account in Antigua. So it's simply a matter of, as long as you have your documentation, as long as your checks are in order, and there's nothing untoward about your character, for example, you coming with your information, a bank will provide you with a bank account.
You mentioned something there. If a person is from Antigua, that they can open an account in Antigua. Let's say I am a national of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and I want to open an account in Grenada. Can I do that?
Yes, because there is the OECS agreement for residents within the OECS territories, so that as well would be acceptable. Now
we have an account set up. What sort of fees are associated with, and I know they might differ from instrument to instrument or product to product, but basically, what are some of the fees that are associated with savings accounts?
So in the first instance, many banks indicate to customers a minimum balance. So banks would charge for going below your minimum balance. So that is one of the reasons why you need to know what you require the account for. So if you go below the minimum balance, if you have a specific number of transactions in branch, banks would also charge. At the ATMs, there's a minor fee that some banks would charge. If you do transfers between, for example, electronic funds transfers, wire transfers, you have fees for that. Some banks as well have a monthly fee. That is not across all banks, but some banks do that, and certain online banking transactions as well. So these are just some of the various fees that savings accounts would attract.
What are the main responsibilities of a customer? Because you've opened an account, you did mention about a minimum balance. What are some of the responsibilities of a customer when it comes to maintaining his or her bank account?
Well, in the first instance, just as you mentioned, ensuring that you maintain that minimum balance on the account. Secondly, when you open an account, you typically open it for a specified purpose. So if you're opening an ordinary savings account for your salary, you should ensure that the reason for that account is your salary. If it is at another point or somewhere down the line, you open a small business, for example, let's say you're selling vehicles, for want of a better example, you should not be mixing the funds from your vehicle business in your savings account. So if you have a small business, you open a small business account. You set up your business through your intellectual property office or legally, and then you open an account for that. But you should not mingle those funds, everything all together in one. Another thing customers should ensure that they do, another responsibility is to ensure that your information is up to date. So as you change your address, as you change, for example, where you work or anything like that, your telephone contact, please go to your banks and ensure that that information is current, because any change, the bank may need to contact you if there's some suspicious activity on your card or on your account. At least if you have your current information, the bank is able to say, well, this is what we're noting. Is that you? And we can put a stop to it.
Ishawn, coming back to you in the area of compliance, what are some of the common issues you see? I don't want to say breaches, but you might qualify them as breaches. What are some of these common issues that you've seen?
Similar to what Efiah said, a lot of the times we do see customers passing their funds from any small business that they may have opened through their personal account. And that's not the purpose of a savings account. The purpose of a savings account is exactly that, to save and not to transact business. So that's one of the most common things. I wouldn't add anything else with that in terms of breaches. From time to time, you may recognize that there may be a change in how the customer is operating the account. And we would ask the frontline staff to reach out to the customer and verify that the transaction was conducted by them, because, as Efiah mentioned, we really want to ensure that there's no suspicious activity happening on the account in our attempt to protect our depositors and our customers.
Efiah, what are some of the common concerns customers bring to you?
We do have complaints, and I mean, you're doing this program because of the speed of account opening. You hear about lines in banks, you hear about the fees in banks and so on. I know many banks are looking at their account opening process and trying to see how it can be simplified to ensure more ease of access to customers. In terms of the lines at the banks, what I would say is that many of the transactions that are conducted in branch do not necessarily have to be conducted in branch. So when persons come in branch, for example, to withdraw $200, $300, $1,000, that is not something that you need to stand in a line for. You can simply go to your ATM. If you need to transfer money to a friend, somebody who's doing some work for you, we have electronic funds transfer. So you have many digital means of satisfying your requirements rather than standing in line. Even to pay your bills, there's no need to go into a line. You save a lot of time, you save a lot of money, even for business clients. Things like sending someone into the bank to make deposits for you. You always have your night depository units in all banks. So there's no need to send someone on a bank line for an hour or so when you can simply drop it in the evening or something like that. So there are many options. If you need to transact a wire transfer, for example, it's on your digital platform and it gets there just as quickly or even faster. So there are many options outside of standing in a bank line. We do understand there are some persons who may not necessarily be digitally savvy and make the decision to come into a bank. Yes, so banks offer that service. But really and truly, most customers who are in branch do not necessarily have to be in branch.
Any final word from you, Ishawn, as we wrap up?
Just to remind our customers that, again, even though the requirements seem onerous, they are for your protection. So we would want them to assist us by providing the information, providing the accurate information, and providing it in a timely manner. Some of those delays are also stem from when the customer brings in the information. So the longer we have to wait to get the information from you, the longer the whole account opening process may take. But we continue to work with our customers and to protect their funds.
Efiah, Ishawn, thank you very much for speaking with us on ECCB Connects.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is working with financial institutions across the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union to make the process of opening a bank account easier.
We are committed to simplifying the process for opening a bank account without ignoring our obligations to protect the financial system in respect of money laundering and financing terrorism. But we can't continue with a situation where people are locked out, or it is so difficult, even for a young person starting a business, to open a bank account. It is beyond ridiculous. It's unacceptable. We have to address that. We've asked for proposals from our financial institutions. They have recently submitted some proposals which we are now reviewing. It may require some legislative amendments. If that's what it is, that's what we will do through our governments. But we have to address the issue of the ease of opening a bank account. And I give you the assurance that the central bank will work with our financial institutions and our governments to address this pressing issue.
Celebrating ECCB at 40.
Did you know that the Board of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is the second highest decision-making body at ECCB? It primarily comprises permanent secretaries of finance of the member countries, the governor and the deputy governor. The board is chaired by the governor. Now you know, celebrating ECCB at 40.
Here's where we end this week's episode of ECCB Connects. This week we look at the process of opening a bank account. Here are the key steps. Decide which type of account meets your financial needs. Complete and submit an application form to the financial institution of your choice. Make sure you have the required documents. These are usually a government-issued ID, proof of address, for example, a utility bill, or a copy of your rent agreement, and a job letter. The approval process takes up to a week to allow the financial institution to conduct the necessary checks. Remember, these steps are intended to protect you, the customer, and the financial institution, as well as to maintain the stability of the ECCU financial system. Thanks for watching. We invite you to join us next week for another program.